Welcome to Landmark Implement's customer support help videos. These will help you diagnose common issues in a timely manner. When contacting the AMS helpline, you must leave a message. The message is then sent out to all of our CTS employees. The first CTS to get it will then return your call. Also, stay connected with Landmark. Download the Landmark app today. In this session, we're going to talk about yield calibrations. First off, yield maps are useful in identifying and diagnosing yield influencing factors. They can provide feedback on managed inputs such as fertilizer or lime, or different seed varieties, or even cultural practices such as no-till or minimum till. With the yield maps, you can compare fields, sites within the fields, or different practices. Comparing these sites will help you lead to data-driven decisions. First off, garbage in equals garbage out. So if we aren't producing accurate yield data, we're not going to be able to make accurate and profitable decisions. But if we do take the time to calibrate our yield monitors to get accurate data, it will result in improved productivity and profitability. Just some tips before we do our calibration. We want to make sure our moisture meter and our mass flow sensor are clean. A lot of times the combine could be stored in the shed over winter, and some gunk could be left behind those mass flow plates or in the moisture meter. So we want to make sure that those are clean. We also want to make sure that our mass flow sensor pad is not worn, because that could lead to erratic readings as well. We want to calibrate in a uniform crop. So we want to avoid calibrating when we are opening the fields or turning at headlands. We also want to calibrate at a uniform flow rate. So we want to pick a speed and stick to that speed throughout the calibration. We want to calibrate to an accurate reference scale, whether it be a grain cart that's accurate or the elevator scale. Also, we do not want to unload on the go. Starting off with 70 series, it's a single point calibration for the yield calibration. To get there, we will go to our fourth button, hit it twice, as shown in the right picture, to the diagnostics and calibration. We will then use our scroll dial and hit our check mark to select the drop-down menu and scroll down and select the yield. We will then hit the next arrow and it will bring up to a page like this, which is our main yield calibration page. We want to make sure the grain tank and the dump tank are both empty before we do anything else. We will then select the next arrow and it will bring up to the second page of the yield calibration. We're going to do a standard flow calibration. We always have to do the standard flow calibration before we can do a low flow. Low flow is used when yields or weights may vary substantially, but most of the time we will just do a standard calibration. Then we'll hit the next arrow. Now at this point we will start harvesting grain, and the harvested weight should increase. If we would like to exit the screen while the calibration is going on, we can. If we want to see things going on in the background, such as our concave or rotor settings or the moisture, to simply do that, we just hit this return arrow right here, and that will not interrupt the calibration. Then once you harvest a decent amount of weight, we can go back into the screen the same way that we got into it the first time, and it will bring you back up to this page shown right here. We want to harvest a decent amount of grain. There is no minimum limit on the 70 series, but 10,000 pounds will be better than 3,000 pounds, and a full bin will be better than a half a bin. Once we are satisfied with the weight that we have harvested, it will bring us to a screen like this. It shows the harvested weight, and it gives us the option to input the scale weight. If we know the scale weight from, say, a grain cart or gravity wagon, we can enter it right there and then hit the accept arrow. If we do not know the scale weight right away, we can still just go ahead and hit this accept arrow, and we can enter the scale weight later. To do that, we will go back into our yield calibration the same way that we got in the first time. And we will go and select the middle button. It's outlined in red, and that will bring up and give us the option to enter our scale weight, which we'll enter right here. Once we are done with that, we will hit the accept arrow. And that will complete the yield calibration for a 70 series machine. On the S series machines, it's a multi-point calibration. It is far different from a 70 series machine. So if we try to calibrate our S series machine the same way that we calibrated our 70 series, it will be inaccurate. First off, we will need to go through some different calibrations before we can do our weight and yield calibration. First, need to calibrate our temperature and do our mass flow vibration calibration. The mass flow vibration calibration needs to be done once at the beginning of each season for each type of head. So you might have to do it twice if you have a corn head and also have a flex head. Then we will need to do our moisture correction and calibration. And then finally, we can move on to the weight and yield calibration. This series is, like I said, quite a bit different. We're going to have several loads to do one calibration. Versus the 70 series, we only use one calibration load to complete the total calibration. On the S series, it is recommended that we use 4 to 8 calibration loads. And we want them to be uniform in size and over 3,000 pounds. If they are under 3,000 pounds, the calibration load will not be accepted. As you can see on this chart here, we want to change our flow rates by changing our speeds for each calibration load. So maybe we want to, one load harvest normal harvest speed, the next load add half a mile an hour, another load subtract half a mile an hour, subtract a mile an hour from the normal harvest speed, and so on. A maximum of 13 calibration loads can be used for each crop. That's how many loads can be entered into the display. So you could have up to 13 for corn and up for 13 for soybeans or 13 for wheat, whatever we desire. It's good to always have a pen and a pad at hand to make notes while doing these calibration loads. First off, to get into the calibrations page, we want to hit our main menu and then hit on the combine page. We want to select button B, and then we'll select button G, bring us into our user calibrations. And then from the drop-down menu, we want to select yield and hit accept. First off, we want to go into our calibration load management button, highlighted in red. It'll bring up to this page here. This could be some old calibrations loads that you may have done or have been done on the combine before. Like I said, a maximum of 13 can be entered for each crop. So we might need to delete some since we need to do anywhere from 4 to 8 calibration loads. If there are 10 in there, we might want to delete 5 or 6 just to start over. To simply do that, we hit this button right here, and that will delete the calibration load. After we're satisfied and have enough room, we'll hit the back arrow, and then we'll go and hit the accept arrow to start one of our calibration loads. Once again, we want to make sure that the grain tank is empty and our dump tank is empty as well. At this point, we will start harvesting, and the estimated weight will increase. Once again, we want to harvest at least 3,000 pounds. After we are satisfied with our weight that we have harvested, we'll hit accept, and then we will repeat that process over forward 7, 8 more times to complete our calibration loads. I've thrown a scenario together to illustrate this a little bit better. Say on load number 1, we harvest at 5 mile an hour. During this calibration load, we're going to stay at 5 mile an hour and not vary our speed, but maybe 1 or 2 tenths of a mile per hour. As you can see, the harvested weight or estimated weight was 16.5 and the scale weight was 18.5. Our next load, we're going to change our flow rate. Maybe it's our normal harvest speed, and so we do 4.5 mile an hour. We harvested 16,000 pounds. One thing I do want to note is we want the harvested weights to be uniform in size. We don't want a harvested weight to be on one of the loads to be 16,000 pounds and on another load to be 3,000 pounds and on another load 10,000 pounds. We want them to all be uniform, as you can see here. This will lead to the most accurate calibration that we can get. Once we're done with our calibration loads, or even in between, we'll go in here and enter the actual scale weights in this column right here. This is why it's, once again, good to have maybe a pen and pad to make notes for what load is which. That way we get them inputted correctly. And finally, some confusion can be brought over these check marks here on the left side, what they do, what purpose they serve. The boxes that are checked marked will go and factor into the final calibration. So if there's loads that we do not want to use, we will simply uncheck them. Also, we want to uncheck the loads that have an error of greater than 3%, whether it be negative 3% and greater. So we wouldn't want to use something that's negative 4% or 4%. That's just an inaccurate reading. Once we're happy with the loads that we've selected, we will finally hit this calibration button, and that will do our final calibration for the S-Series machine. Remember, garbage in is garbage out. So if we're not producing accurate yield data, we will not be able to make the best decisions off of that yield maps, if any decisions at all. The S-Series does take more time. It is a more extensive process, but if we do spend the time with it and do it right, we will get accurate readings that will improve our profitability.
Would you like a support video produced for an additional topic? Please email guides@landmarkimp.com. For further support, contact your Landmark location. Landmark Implement, building our business one satisfied customer at a time.